podcast of the PPO, podcast about everything from the world of public procurement.
Good day, dear listeners. Welcome to Public Procurement Office podcast. Today we are talking with our special guest from Ireland, Mr. Martin O Gorman. Could you please introduce yourself and your role in public procurement processes in Ireland?
Thank you, Petra. I'm delighted to be here. Martin is my name. I've come a long way from Ireland, and I'm delighted to be here for your celebration of 25 years of your public procurement office. It's a great achievement, and it's in existence much longer than our own structures. So you've done very well. So I'm very, very pleased to be here and in your beautiful country.
What do you mean it's longer than your achievement?
Because our public procurement functions have changed over the years. Even though we're a member of the European Union since 1973, procurement has moved through various ministries and so on. And also, we have recently had a experiment with an office similar to your PPO, right? And that function is now being reabsorbed back into the ministry. Okay. So,
could you please tell us more about this? For example, about the differences between our PPO and your PPO?
Yeah. So you are independent of government, and that has its strengths, but it also has its weaknesses. Because you are somewhat outside the political sphere, and often the political tier gets a little anxious about not having full control. Okay, so our latest experiment, which went for about 8 or 9 years, was designed in the middle of our financial crisis to save lots of money. We were going to save a lot of public money by having an exclusive operational procurement function. A good idea, but the practicality of it didn't really work out. There wasn't that much saved over the years. And now we're reverting back to the normal Irish model where the ministry controls the function and the requirement, okay? And the political tier feel much more comfortable with that.
Why do you think you didn't save that much money when you told me this?
Well, the reality is we didn't, right? The ambition was to save €500 million a year, which is a very high ambition. I don't think it was realizable, but the idea was if everything was aggregated in terms of purchasing, then there would be instant savings. But you were introducing a model that works in a lot of other countries, but you were introducing it into an Irish public service which hadn't really operated a model like this before, and it didn't interface terribly well with the powers of each contracting authority who jealously guard their own money and how they spend it. Okay? So the dynamic would be, yes, thank you for offering to buy things for us, but we continue to do it ourselves. Okay?
I understand. And can you tell us more about the differences from your model compared to ours?
So we have a much more liberal regime, you might call it, or light touch regime. Okay? Particularly given the general approach, particularly on the eastern side of the union, okay? It's much more regimented and there are many layers. Our regulation of the procurement area is much more light touch, and we pass most of the responsibility on to each contracting authority. We are countries of very similar size. We've about the same population, okay? 5.5 million each.
5.5, exactly.
You have 3,000 contracting authorities, which you consider as a problem. We have 9,000 contracting authorities. So if you have a problem with 3, we have a treble problem with 9, okay?
But why do you have 9,000? Because 3,000, we are talking about municipalities only, but obviously our contracting authorities go in much further number.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, what about 9,000?
Ireland, again, is very different in terms of we do not have the normality of municipalities in Ireland. Okay. We have a very centralized governmental system. Okay. So the ministries are the controlling bodies. Okay. And then they have a lot of subcontracting authorities underneath them, which operate in their own area, but they don't have, shall we say, legislative power like municipalities might have. Okay. So it's very centralized. And then we have a lot of these contracting authorities doing the work below that. Okay. So it's quite different to most of Europe in that respect. We have been always very centralized. And in fact, we have become more centralized in the last 30 years because it was considered that below central government level, local government level was just a way of not spending efficiently. And therefore, every time we had financial difficulties, we would centralize things a little bit more. Okay. So it's an ever centralizing.
And how many municipalities do you actually have?
There's now 31.
31 for the whole country?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Because when you say you are still centralized, yes, this would actually match your idea, because to have 31 on 5 million people.
Yes, I understand. But their powers and their areas of operation keep getting shrunk down.
I totally understand.
Yeah. So their spend, the majority of public spend in Ireland is done through central government, right? And that means more control.
Could you please tell us more about your review processes?
Again, we are the exception in Europe to this. We're exceptional in many ways. We have inherited a common law legal system from our former colonial masters in England, and we haven't really changed that. Again, the judicial system is very conservative and doesn't change an awful lot decade after decade. So our review system is not as widespread or as accessible as every other member state. Let's be quite honest. Our first instance tier is actually at judicial level. The Portuguese model is not totally dissimilar to that. The difference in Ireland is that the cost of getting to court for anything, including procurement, is very high.
I'm sorry, but do I get this right? Like, really? You don't have a review body in your office?
No.
So it comes with the state?
It is devolved to the judiciary.
Oh.
Okay. So the judicial function covers all aspects, first instance, second instance, all appeal and so on.
But why is it so?
Because we followed the English system at the time.
I understand that. I already done like a few of the podcasts, and there is not one country that has it this way.
I said we are exceptional. Yeah. Now you believe me. Yeah.
Of course, because also in Slovakia there are like many things that are not that, let's say, positive.
Yes.
But the review.
Yes.
Opportunities are so important for the contracting authority, or
I agree. It's a major, and it's very unusual to procurement. And a lot of people point this out very wisely. It's a good check and balance in the system. Okay. So if we do not have the same level or accessibility of the check and balance in the procurement system that other member states have, what does that mean in the Irish context? Have we a very uncontrolled public market? Have we a lot of cartelism in the public market? Even using another word, C, does that mean there's a higher level of corruption in the Irish public market? So intuitively would say, well, if there's no check and balance, then you must be at that end of the spectrum. However, our scoring consistently year after year is very good on levels of corruption. Have we a higher level of corruption than other member states? Apparently not at all, right? We are very much in the top quartile for good governance in our public market. That's what the statistics say, at least. My philosophical attitude to that is fine, but if there is no check and balance there, you can't actually prove that or tend to prove it, okay? So it is a weakness And I acknowledge that it's a weakness, and I think the Commission remain concerned that the Irish model is very, very different to a lot of the other member states. So it's very different, but is there a real need to do a massive reform in that area? Apparently not, because things are running effectively, efficiently, and with a level of commercial sustainability that doesn't cause concern.
Then there is my next question. What are the biggest challenges you actually face with in public procurement area?
I think the Irish challenges are the same as every other member state, okay? And we have the same problem for all public servants working in this area. We have public budgets to spend each year, and we're expected to ensure that those budgets are expended to the fullest possible extent, and that it's done speedily, with value for money, and that the outcome is effective in terms of an operational contract that delivers for the taxpayer and to fulfill the public requirement. That's the same in every country. So it's difficult to ensure that keeps going, that works effectively year in, year out. Why is it difficult? Well, one, we face issues of the number of people and the expertise working in the procurement area.
You have too few of them?
Oh, everybody has too few of them.
That's true. Okay. That's true.
Yeah. So when you have 9,000 contracting authorities, you do not have 9,000 people who are expert in procurement.
Exactly.
Okay? You cannot. Okay. So professionalization and bringing a reasonable level of understanding and expertise, or shall we say competence, to purchase is essential in all member states. A common problem. Okay. How do you do that? Very difficult. I don't think anybody's solved that so far. Okay?
I understand, but how is it effective when actually you don't have people and you need them so much, and this is happening in every single member state? Are we complicating procurement too much?
I would think at the moment procurement is complex, right? The laws underpinning it are complex. And this has been exacerbated by the sectoral files coming in over the last 4 or 5 years, of which there are now more than 70. And everybody is getting very confused.
Thank you very much for mentioning this, because that was actually going to be one of my next questions. So imagine here in Slovakia, we have 3,000 municipalities where most of them are below 1,000 inhabitants. So can you imagine being a mayor? And now you have all this new regulation coming from European Union.
Yes.
And they require you to use that specification, that another requirement. How is it possible for countries like ours or Czech Republic or all these with so many municipalities to actually absorb this and do it properly?
I think actually the smaller member states have the advantage over the larger member states in this area. Okay.
Advantage.
Yes, because of the scale, right? When you have very large and complex governmental structures like Germany, France, Spain, and so on in the larger countries, the ability to not so much control but provide coherence across the system is much more difficult, right? But in a smaller country where the communication links are shorter, more direct, and where you have a cohesive public service, I think actually you can provide quite a lot of assistance from the centre. And this is what we do in Ireland.
But imagine we were sitting here also with a mayor. He would definitely disagree because all the responsibility lies on their shoulders.
Correct. Yes.
How is it fair?
No, that's the reality. It's the mayor's money and he or she must account for the expenditure of it. How to do it, right? That's the question. And I don't think...
It's taxpayers' money.
Once that it has been assigned to the contracting authority, then it is the responsibility of the chief executive of the contracting authority.
Of course, that's true.
The taxpayer is not the person signing the contract.
Exactly.
Okay?
No responsibility lies on taxpayer.
No, the accountability is to the person signing the contract. Okay? And that's very clear legally, I think, in all member states and the reality. And that's why people get very anxious about the procurement process and signing the contract.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. But what we do in Ireland is when there is a concern, we provide a specific assistance from the centre in terms of advice and guidance to a contracting authority where they are unsure as to the best way to proceed. Now, in parallel with that, the reality in a lot of member states is that they will also go to the private sector and get specific legal advice from the private sector. And one of the problems I've had over the last few years, and I've said it many times, the existing set of rules, which are getting more complex, are a lawyer's charter to make money. Right? And in a lot of member states, private legal firms make a lot of useful money from supporting and advising in relation to the procurement function. If we get to the stage which we are almost now in the middle of simplifying, what the Commission like to say is simplify the code for procurement, I think it will be even more possible for the central, either an office in your case or the ministry in our case, to provide from the centre good guidance that will provide coherence in the system.
I totally understand your point, but 2 weeks ago I had a mayor here in a podcast, and from his perspective, all he cares about, he doesn't want to procure. For them, it's a burden. For them, it's something they obviously have to do because they absolutely respect of the idea, okay, this is the public money. But aren't we a little bit lost in all this topic that we are so much into procurement that we actually forget that some people just have to do it?
It's when you say he didn't want to do it, I can understand that, right? It is a major administrative burden. Right? And if you don't have the experience or the expertise in your organization, you're going to feel vulnerable.
It is impossible in 3,000 municipalities to have the same experts, like, for example, in ministries level. In ministries level, really those people are so skilled. They meet each other. They actually share the knowledge. But on the municipality level, we cannot even find even more important professions like doctors. So how can we ask for the good procurers people or people who are experts in this area? It is simply impossible.
There is a balance to that though, Petra, in terms of when people are given a budget to spend on a particular project, they get very, very protective of that project and take it on as their own. They become very proprietorial, if you understand that word. The way to get to success is through the procurement process, so they will tough through that part of the process. But their eyes are on the prize of, I delivered a building or a facility or grand art gallery or something like that, and they get terribly involved in the project. It's theirs, okay? In that context, I think they're very open to asking for and getting advice from the centre. Okay, how do I get over this hurdle, which is procurement, okay? But that's not really what my focus is on. It's opening the building at the end of the day, okay? It's having the plaque on the wall. It's having all the kudos for delivering a good project, right? So the procurement fear and the procurement difficulty recedes into the background for an awful lot of people, and they just go through the process. And I find if the centre says, look, we can talk to you about this and we can give you lots of advice and so on, that produces a very good result at the end of the day. They're still in charge and they're very comfortable being in charge, but they're very welcome. They're very grateful for the advice as well. It's a collaborative function, but certainly in the Irish context, it works quite well.
We have one very sensitive topic here in Slovakia, which is conflict of interest. Is it also an issue in your country? I will briefly tell you what is happening in our country. So we have all these systems and audits. And for example, if you are a friend with somebody on Facebook or sharing the same hunting club, for example, this is considered like potential conflict of interests, and everybody is punished unless they take the measures. When I'm talking to all these people from the procurement area, everybody is very surprised, like, why are you creating the problem? Why are you so strict on yourself and so on? So I also want to ask you, what is the situation in Ireland about this?
We have a very high culture of the independence of the public service. We are different to a lot of countries in terms of nearly all public servants are not appointed by the government. They're appointed independently. And they operate independently of the political tier, but in full support of the political policy and the political direction. Okay. So yeah, it might be slightly confusing for you, but it's one of those balances in the system, right? Which we have and we think is quite good in terms of we have the political direction from government and we have an independent public service to implement it. And this provides balance.
I wouldn't say I'm confused. I'm just setting, for example, an example. So imagine you were like working as a mayor for a municipality, but you didn't run for the next election. But for 5 years, you are still in the system as a potential person of conflict of interest. So let's say after 3 years, there is a tender calling and you are hunting with a potential economic operator or contracting authority and you're a supplier and you are still in the conflict of interest. Isn't this too much? Because obviously I shouldn't be like giving suggestions like this, but I truly feel like this is too much.
We would have a culture of not going hunting.
That's such
or any other interaction, right? If we felt that there was an opportunity for a potential conflict of interest there, the expectation would be that the public servant would say, I'm not available, right? Okay? And they would keep the distance. And they would maintain their position of being an independent operator in society. Okay,
but what if you deliver something that you are like, maybe like 5 people on the market? Come on, it's probable and...
we would keep it at commercial level purely.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. But what we do in Slovakia is that actually we are taking measures about this commercial level. The economic operator, he truly is just acting on the market. But why he should be punished?
But you see, you're trying to regulate for it, okay?
Whereas, we do regulate a lot.
Yes, exactly. We don't regulate for that.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's in the operational culture. Right? So the expectation is that the public servant will not get themselves into a position of potential conflict of interest, and they will maintain their distance and not attend events where it might be considered, they were at a football match for free and therefore they might be having a very cozy relationship with somebody. We wouldn't go to the football match.
So there is no corruption in Ireland?
Right. That comes back to about 10 minutes ago. Okay. Statistically, we have a very low level of corruption. Okay. Right.
Yes.
Is there corruption there? I have no doubt. Okay. But we tend to have we have a reliance. You might say it's an over-reliance, but we have a reliance on people acting in the public interest. As I say, public servants are appointed independently and therefore they're expected to maintain that independent position. Okay? So we deliver for government, but we do not operate in the political sphere, right? We deliver for the state in public spending, but we do not operate in the commercial sphere, right? We buy from the commercial sphere. Yeah. Okay?
I would also like to talk about AI because I was having very interesting conversation about this with many speakers on the podcast. So there are 2 different opinions. One of them is like, for example, Chris's model, where he is very passionate. He was very passionate about AI in the future. And then there is a Poland point of view. Absolutely no. It is not trustworthy. It gives you their own opinion to actually embrace. What is your opinion about AI in public procurement?
Oh, early days, right? Very early days. And I would side with the Polish skepticism. Yes. If you look back in the history books and go back to the year 2000, there was the Y2K controversy, where the IT sector, let's call it, held every public service around the world to ransom because the clock was going to change at midnight, December 31st, 1999, to a new clock 1 minute after midnight on the 1st of January 2000. Right? The problem was that the coding across the world did two numbers for the date. So 99, no problem. When we got to 00 in 2000, every computer around the world was going to be totally confused and the whole world was going to shut down. Okay? You should look this up, okay?
I will.
Yeah.
Because
so the planes were going to fall out of the sky, right? Your car would not start in the morning, and even things like your kettle would not turn on, right? So this was all actually not correct. But the IT industry made an enormous fortune out of every country in the world reprogramming all their systems, right, to ensure that this didn't happen.
Are you really sure you want this on podcast? I reckon.
That's okay. No, this is history. This is history. Okay. So, in my view, the IT industry is very good at talking it up and talking problems up and so on. So the latest fetish for the IT industry is AI. Okay, promises the sun, moon, and stars. Right, it's going to transform everything. I am slightly skeptical, right? I saw Y2K at the time, and so it reminds me of the world doesn't really operate like an IT specialist thinks it's going to operate. Okay, so AI will come in. It will have to adapt rather than us adapting to AI. I think, will have to adapt to the realities of the human world. Okay, and that will take time. The idea that the world will change in 5 years is not sustainable in my view. It will take a much longer period. It's not so long ago that computers were going to ensure that all human beings had, a leisure lifestyle and nobody would ever have to work again and all this, right? So we've heard this before. AI is now being touted as another way of human beings not having to work anymore. So I really don't think that's going to happen.
So you're also not using any AI in your procurement systems in Ireland?
Not yet, because we like to observe and learn from the mistakes of others. Okay? We're a cautious, conservative nation,
amazing.
But this is not necessarily a bad thing.
Exactly my approach.
Okay. Right. Well, you must have Irish blood in you then.
No, I don't have any. But trust me. This is a perfect approach.
We can get terribly caught up in the enthusiasm and the hard selling from the IT industry. Okay. But I think as public servants, like anything else, we need to stand back and say, hang on a sec. In the longer term, what's in the best interest for the taxpayer and for the public service? So I am observing what's going on at the moment. The other thing I've come across is recently a few countries have actually produced AI systems in the procurement space. Okay. Not telling you what they're going to do, what they're planning, what they're projecting. Actually, they have set up systems that are operating. Now, that's very good to look at, right? But I would like to go and have good demonstrations from them as to how it operates, and then come back 2 or 3 years later and say, so how are you actually doing? And is this delivering what you said it was going to deliver? So we like to catch up over time, right? We're not culturally over fond of innovation, right? We will sit back and learn and then say, now we think is the time to take advantage. Okay. It's the lazy way of doing it as well, Petra, but yeah.
But we know that the best inventions come from laziness. No problem.
Okay.
That's the human nature. So I don't have any problem with that one.
Okay. Yeah.
What would be the one thing you would change about procurement in Europe?
I think it's happening at the moment. Okay. I think the revision of the directives is something that a lot of us representatives of member states in the various groups that operate at the centre in Brussels, we have been saying to the Commission for quite some time that the current code for procurement is not sustainable. Okay, it was designed 12 12, 13 years ago, introduced extra levels of complexity, extra levels of sophistication, shall we say, which meant the purpose and the intent at the time was to ensure that every member state operated in the same manner, so that there was a coherent and equally compliant market. Okay? Again, reality is slightly different. But the problem from all of that is that, again, to come back to the people actually at the coalface doing the purchasing, they get more and more confused. So it needs to be slimmed down, streamlined is what I call it. The Commission calls it simplification, but to streamline down the code that governs it, right? In the interest of the administrators operating procurement. So the burden that's there at the moment needs to be lessened. And the commercial advantage to the contracting authority needs to be rebalanced in their interest. Because it's, at the end of the day, it's public money that's being spent. And it's the efficient and effective spending of public money is the crucial thing about procurement. Procurement is just a mechanism. But the actual spending of the public money is the central issue. And I think we've lost sight of that. So that needs to be rebalanced. And I think the political will, not just at the centre in the Commission, but also amongst the member states is, yes, we need to rework this model again.
I absolutely agree with you. For me, this is a concept. It was made by the people. The laws are making by the people, no matter the member states or commission. Those are exactly the rules where we want to take care of the public money. But the way we approach it is just what people could be possibly made up. And everybody is talking about simplification. It's just still not happening. Just a slight remark. I also want to ask you about the direction of the European Commission right now. So, there are these cases like Colin. European Union was very open market, but now they are taking all the measures how to protect the market. How do you feel about this direction that we are heading to now? Also, I know, thanks to this podcast, that actually they are making the new legislation where they also want to measure European products. What is it to be a European product? Is it made in Europe? Is it just built in Europe? Is it together in Europe?
Yeah.
But obviously, all these directions are tending to actually be a little bit more closed than before. What do you think about this?
I mean, the amount of times the Cullen case is mentioned is really remarkable. Okay, and it's being used as some sort of almost a bargaining tool at this stage. The ECJ decision, I thought, was very intelligent and very clever. What did it do effectively is it gave control to the contracting authority as to how it would operate in its own commercial interest. Fundamentally, that is the case. And I think that should be repeated. There are other aspects that people feel create confusion and difficulty and so on. But come back and say, okay, I as the contracting authority can operate within the market in my own interest. That's a tremendous thing to have from the ECJ, right? But it also is the reality. We talked before about who signs the contract. That's the reality. So if you are putting a contract in place, you want to know that it is going to be on time, it's going to be value for money as much as you can guarantee, and that it's going to deliver to a good standard, right? And time after time, every public contract you want to put in place, you want to confirm those three aspects as much as you can. That's simply the job, okay? And that should be the focus. So the current context from the centre is much more political than it used to be. So administrators, we are now operating, and we need to be aware of this, we're operating in a much more political environment. But we do that anyway. In each member state, in whatever the format of delivery is, we are public servants operating under political direction, okay? So you might say this is actually a rebalancing at European level as well, okay? Again, all these extra rules about what to buy and where to buy and how to buy and so on. They're quite sector specific, right? For the vast majority of public spending, it shouldn't affect anybody really that much at all. They're quite confined to certain areas. So I don't think I can understand them getting confused, but they can adapt to that. I don't think they should be afraid of all of that, right? I think they should be looking forward to a situation in maybe 3 years' time where they'll be operating under a different code that with a little bit of practice they will find is much more in their interest and much more in support of the requirements of contracting authorities to deliver for the public.
But I still need to ask you once again, do you think it is right to go with this approach that Colin Case showed us? Because I understand everything you said. Yeah. But still, we are closing our market, putting more specifications. And we know United States, China, Japan, they are much more closed market. We are going exactly in this direction. How do you feel personally about this approach?
I think, again, put a historical perspective on it. What procurement as a coded function in the European context goes back to 1971. Okay? But it is a support pillar for the single market and the concept of the single market. And the single market is one of the three main support pillars of the idea of the union. Okay? So it is a pillar for one of the main pillars, but it's the single market. We have, I think, in Europe, taken a very open trading approach to global economics for quite some time, right? The world has changed, external factors are changing it and so on, but Europe as a trading bloc needs to assert itself more than it has, in my view, and I think it is doing that. Okay. It also needs to do that because of the external pressures and threats. Okay. But come back to it. That is all in the interests of the single European market, right? We are all in this together. We're the biggest internal trading bloc, right? We all benefit as each member state. We benefit from that commercial and economic reality. And if we benefit in that way, then we should be, I think, very supportive of initiatives to strengthen that situation. So I'm not confused so much about these things. There will be a lot of confusion, but I keep my eye on the firm prize of we operate together in a single market. We're 27 operating and benefiting from that single market, and therefore we should be open to and supportive of measures that help secure that single market.
This is my, I think, 12th podcast.
Okay.
Everybody is afraid to criticize European Union when it comes to this recording. I always ask, but everybody always ends up in supporting these ideas. But we don't feel like that at all. Not about Colin Case, that is okay, but, we discussed also in the bus. Why is everybody so much afraid to tell on the podcast, on recording, that we are not in the best state of our minds? You know what I mean? I really want so much because I cannot, as a moderator, to actually speak up.
But okay, I think I know what you're saying. But are you looking at the wider political mechanism that is Europe? Rather, I'm talking about the single market.
I will tell you. Yeah, I totally understand. What I'm telling is that actually we both know, because we discussed and with everybody that was participating here, that Europe now needs actions. Okay, Colin Case is an action. I understand.
Yeah.
But not talking all the time. We need to deliver. We need to realize we are not what we used to be before Corona. But whenever I try to go that direction, it is with Chris, it is with everybody. Everybody always stands firmly for Europe, but without actually raising this criticism or this opinion. It's very.
I can talk to that if you want. But
I do.
Okay.
I really do.
Okay.
If you are not afraid.
No, I'm not at all. No.
Okay.
Because we are all citizens,
Yes.
right? And we all it's a democratic system.
It is.
Okay?
Yeah, we can actually stress this out as
Oh, absolutely. But that's the whole point of it.
Exactly.
It is a democratic system.
But I really want this to actually to actually be there, because finally we need to talk about this, how we want to make ourselves better if we never mention it.
Yeah. Okay.
If we are just always flattering ourselves how great we are. So Martin, my last question will be about where the Europe goes. I have a feeling that maybe after Corona, the world has changed. So many really big countries are now talking about the results, but not the processes. And this is also regarding procurement, but not only procurement. I still feel we are a little bit lost in what is actually the process making system. Are we on the right track?
Funny you mentioned Corona. I think the pandemic very much showed to the member states that you cannot survive on your own in the face of very large global difficulties and threats. Okay, and there was a very large push from the centre to try and provide a European response to that global great difficulty. Okay, so I think we should learn the lesson that we are much more effective and stronger together than trying to operate separately. Okay, there are lots of stresses and strains on the European project. That has always been the case, right? If we look at it through the lens of just now and the last couple of years and so on, and recent changes, I think we lose sight of the much longer term reality that is the European project. Okay, going all the way back to 1957, right? Long before your state and my state had any concept of trying to be part of the European project. My
state didn't exist in the form.
In all of that. Yes, exactly. That's worse, right? Yeah. But you have a perspective that we in Ireland didn't live through that, okay? But we know we have some concept of what your country did live through. We're very grateful that we were not exposed to that reality, let alone the threat of it, okay? But we have lived through much more than any other member state with the exit of the UK from Europe, right? And that has been very difficult for us at our end of Europe trying to deal with. Okay. So our perspective is very much our nearest neighbour for very shallowly thought through processes within their polity, within their society, decided, no, we'll go our own way, right? They have estimated in the last year at official level the cost to them per annum in the UK of leaving Europe in 2021 was 100 billion euros per annum. Now, wow, exactly. Wow. Okay. Now, they don't readily admit that figure, etc., etc. That's a real cost. And trying to absorb that, the UK has economic difficulties along with a lot of other countries in Europe, okay? But they have a lot of it brought upon themselves in terms of that, right? So in terms of, the European experiment is all very well, but we'll be somewhat skeptical about it, and we might support it, we might not, and so on. There's an economic reality of recently somebody left, and it's going to continue to be very painful for them for quite some time. Okay.
The number is crazy. We discussed, I told you that actually your budget for Slovakia without added loan is 36 billion a year.
Yeah.
For the whole country.
Yes. Yes.
So this is crazy.
Yes, very, very large figures. And it means that every taxpayer in the UK is paying for the decision. That simple decision to go, no, we're not going to be in, we're going to be out, right? The consequences of that are going to go on for a very long time, right? Our learning in Ireland, because we were so close to it, is that there's another reason for supporting as much as you can the European project. Whatever the European project means now, whatever it'll mean in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, and so on. But the principle is, I think, coming back to the pandemic, we can deal with these really serious and very sudden threats to our normal day-to-day existence by being in this unique experiment, this unique type of experiment, which is the European project.
I can totally support this. It is a very unique experience. But also, I mean, yes, European Union is one of the most interesting sui generis projects that have ever been created.
Yes.
Me personally, I still believe to the whole idea. So yeah, for me, thank you very much for your words.
It's a unique project in a democratic sphere.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And a democratic development always has problems and difficulties as it goes along, because people change their attitude, change their approach.
And we talk too much all the time.
But that's the support of the democratic process, right? And if we stop talking, then we begin to create problems for ourselves. Or if we stay silent and allow others to tell us what we should be thinking, then that creates a problem. And history teaches us the lessons of that as well. So I'm very, very clear that it's a collaboration world, and the more we collaborate in the 27, the better we will be in the long run.
Thank you very much, Martin, for accepting our invitation and coming to our podcast. It was very nice and very fruitful discussion, and we get to know a lot of new informations and points of view. Thank you, our dear listeners, for having this time with us.
Thank you.
You were listening to the Public Procurement Podcast with Petra Šupáková.
Podcast of the PPO. Podcast about everything from the world of public procurement.